Bismillah walhamdulillah wa salatu wassalamu ala rasulillah wa ala alihi wa ashabihi wa man walahu wa ba'd. This is a short explanation of the book Umdat al-Fiqh, specifically Kitab al-Siyam, from this book which was written by al-Hafidh ibn Qudama al-Maqdisi al-Hanbali rahimahullah ta'ala. Ibn Qudama, considered one of the premier scholars of the Hanbali school, and we're going to try and cover about one or 2 points from the book of fasting every day, insha'Allah ta'ala. So I hope that you do enjoy. The goal here is to cover the issues, some of their evidences, some of the finer points that we might be able to glean from these issues and their evidences to help us increase in our practice as well as our spirituality during the month of Ramadan. So here, rahimahullah ta'ala, he says, Kitab al-Siyam, يجب صيام رمضان على كل مسلم بالغ عاقل قادر على الصوم. He says the book of fasting. In the book of fasting, siyam means abstention. So you are abstaining from food, drink, and sexual desires during the daytime of Ramadan, or during the daytime if it is a non-obligatory fast. He then says the fast of Ramadan is obligatory for every adult, sane Muslim that has the ability to fast. يجب صيام رمضان على كل مسلم بالغ عاقل قادر على الصوم. The fast of Ramadan is obligatory on every Muslim who is of the age of puberty, بالغ, age of majority, عاقل, he is sane, he doesn't have any diminished capacity, قادر على الصوم, he has the ability to fast. So these are 4 conditions. So what are these conditions? First condition is the condition of Islam. In order for your fast to be considered an act of worship and to be accepted by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala as such, you must be a Muslim. And so this is the condition for the acceptance of all actions as an act of faith. So a non-Muslim may come and fast, but it's not going to be considered an act of worship from them because it does not have the requisite intention and reason behind it. Also, the second condition is sanity or mental capacity, and therefore fasting is not obligatory on a person who has no mental capacity, meaning that they are insane or they have diminished mental capacity and they don't understand their own actions. This is not expected of them because the Prophet ﷺ, he said, رُفِعَ الْقَلَمْ عَنْ ثَلَاثَةٍ عن المجنون حتى يفيق وعن النائم حتى يستيقظ وعن الصبي حتى يحتلم. That the pen has been lifted from 3, from the insane person, the majnun, until they come to sanity, until the sleeping person until they awake, and from the child until they reach the age of puberty. So the idea here is that you've reached a certain level of mental clarity wherein you understand the acts that you're doing, and you can make the requisite intention necessary for that act to be accepted. He then, rahimahullah ta'ala, he says, qadir ala sawm, with the ability to fast. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has made fasting obligatory upon all of those who witness the month of Ramadan. فَمَنْ شَهِدَ مِنْكُمُ الشَّهْرَ فَلْيَصُمْهُ. Whoever witnesses from amongst you the month, then let them fast. وَمَنْ كَانَ مَرِيضًا أَوْ عَلَى سَفَرٍ فَعِدَّةٌ مِنْ أَيَّامٍ أُخَرٍ. And whoever is sick or traveling, then may make up days at another time of the year. So if you are sick, if you are traveling, if you are elderly, if you are breastfeeding or pregnant, there are all dispensations made for those. But if you are none of those things and you are a resident who has the ability to fast, then it is an obligation for you to fast the fast of Ramadan. He then says, rahimahullah ta'ala, وَيُؤْمَرُ الصَّبِيُّ إِذَا أَطَاقَهُ وَيُؤْمَرُ بِهِ الصَّبِيُّ إِذَا أَطَاقَهُ. And a child should be ordered to fast it if he has the ability to. Now, what is the evidence for this? The evidence for this is the actions of the companions of the Prophet ﷺ during the life of the Prophet alayhi salatu wassalam, they would encourage their children to fast during the daytime, and would at times give them toys to keep them busy, and simply cook the food and stir the pot so that they would busy them away from thinking about the food until the time that they would break their fast. Obviously, if a child is unable to fast, or if a child gets hungry, it's not an obligation, but it's merely the idea of training them to recognize and understand the obligation of fasting when it becomes obligatory for them. It can be very difficult for a child to go from absolutely not fasting at all to then fasting, absolutely not wearing hijab at all to then wearing hijab, absolutely not understanding halal and haram to then being told that there are certain things that they can and cannot do. So it means that we take time to teach them day in and day out and get them used to this. And if I were to give you one point that I would glean from this as a lesson to be learned spiritually, it is that many things in life necessitate a rite of passage. And it is our responsibility as believers to not simply jump into things without having trained ourselves and understood the obligation that is obligatory upon us, and have taught others, especially those who are children, have taught them the obligations that they should expect later in life. The Prophet ﷺ once found al-Hasan eating a date from the dates of sadaqah. He put his finger in his mouth and pulled out the date as well as the saliva attached to it, and he said to him, "Kach, kach, ala ta'lam anna as-sadaqa la tahillu li Muhammad wa la li ali Muhammad." Do you know that sadaqah is not permissible for Muhammad or the family of Muhammad? Al-Hafidh ibn Hajar rahimahullah, commenting in this hadith, which is in Bukhari, he said that Al-Hasan was about 4 years old at this time. But the Prophet ﷺ wanted to inculcate in him the understanding of the acts of worship. Now, notice that the author says, وَيُؤْمَرُ بِهِ الصَّبِيُّ إِذَا أَطَاقَهُ. The child is ordered to do so if he has the ability, if he's capable of doing something. Many times we're so adamant on trying to teach people or teach children the rules that we forget the spirit of worship. And so you should not be trying to force a child or be trying to put them through some type of grueling test in order for them to learn to fast or to pray or anything else. Meaning that introduce it early, introduce it gradually, and allow them to grow into it. I see many parents who are extremely rough with their children when they bring them to the masjid. When they pray, the moment they finish praying, what do? They chide their children. They say, "Why haven't you done this? Why haven't you done that?" Well, they can never do it because they didn't know. It's upon you to teach them. So my advice to you is that in all acts of worship, make them acts that don't necessarily have to be fun, because not everything is fun, but the children understand the holiness, the sacredness, the sanctity of those acts, and they start to understand and inculcate that themselves, take the responsibility upon themselves to connect themselves with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But if you take their inability as some type of fault on their part, then you're essentially faulting them for being how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created them at that age, with the inability to understand everything that they're doing. So take them gradually from one stage. You'll see that not only will they grow physically, but you'll see their spirituality grow along the way. So that is the two issues that we will cover for today, inshallah ta'ala. We'll see you in the next episode. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah.